It's always a party at Patchworks. Let's get this party started. Woot woot. Hi everyone, this is Julie from Patchworks, and I am so excited that you are here with me this afternoon so that we can work on this super awesome quilt as you go rag quilt. So rag quilts, if you're not familiar, are two-sided flannel quilts with some batting in the middle. And you make these little quilt sandwiches that have flannel, batting, and flannel, and then you sew them together with the seam here, and then you rag the edges. Throw it in the washer and it gets all super fuzzy. The back side of the quilt is like a second quilt and has smooth seams like you are normally used to seeing. And after you're done with it, there is no need to do any additional finishing and there's no binding. So it's super fun. Rag quilts have been around for a long time. And really, I believe they were born out of necessity by literally taking rags and leftover clothing and putting them together to make nice warm quilts. And we have transformed it into a fun art piece and can be really super cute with novelty fabrics, and they go together super quick, super fun, and there is no finishing after the fact. So we actually took the concept of the rag quilt and combined it with June Taylor Quilt As You Go pre-printed battings. So these individual blocks were actually the first part on the Quilt As You Go series developed by June Taylor several years ago. This has been a project I've wanted to do for a long time, and I finally had the time to put it all together. And this sample here, we have 4 across and 4 down. It's a smaller size. But the size that you can make with this beautiful kit that we've put together here, let me just grab all this gorgeous fabric, is something a little bit larger, something 72 by 72, which is a really nice big couch throw or even the top of a bed. So let's get started and I'll show you how fun and easy this is to put together. We are going to be using a small sample here, and we have put together some Patchworks exclusive directions that are downloadable here. So check the links below for where you can download this. It does reference the batting, so it would be a little tricky to make it without the batting. We have a 48 by 48 shown using 2 Paris on Point packages. So what's a Paris on Point package? A Paris on Point package is this product right here that has 6 quilt blocks in it. It comes on a piece of batting like this where there's 6 printed that you'll cut apart. We have shown you the different sizes in our little pattern here. So I'm showing you in our pattern the 36 by 36, a 48 by 48, and a 72 by 72. I have color coded these in red, blue, and green so that you have all 3 sizes. I've given you the requirements for all of them. If you were to buy our kit here from the store, you would be able to make the largest size. I'm going to lift this up so that you can see here how we've done our layout, so you can see that you can make a 3 by 3 set for the red, a 4 by 4 set for the blue, and then the green goes all the way out to be 6 by 6. Of course, you could change it up and make a rectangle as you wish. We go through how to assemble the main blocks and the alternate blocks and the assembly, and we even go through how to cut up each of the pieces of fabric in our kit so that you can make it just like Julie. To get started, we are going to trim our battings. We're going to make a small sample here with 4 blocks to show you how to put it all together. So I have trimmed these to the blue line. Okay. I then have, for our alternate squares, I have gone ahead and cut two 12.5-inch plain squares. Now for our sample, I thought it'd be fun to show you in non-holiday fabric. So we're going to be using some really fun novelty flannels that we have in the store right now. So on the front side, we're going to be having dinosaurs with this fun green and this blue-green here. And then on the back, we're going to have an alternating checkerboard of our jungle animals and our green. So to get started here, let's start with cutting our fabric. So for our fabric, our green here is going to be what would have been the red in the block. So let's just look quick so we can talk about what fabrics are going to be which. So for ease of use here in translation, my green is going to be this. My dinosaurs will be here and here. And this fabric is going to be this guy here. Okay? All right, let's get to cutting. It's really important when you are making a flannel quilt like this that you do not pre-wash your fabrics. So a lot of times I say pre-washing is up to you or it is recommended, but in this case we do not want to do that. So I am going to take my fabric. I like to fold it in half for ease of cutting here. And it is going to be the half square triangles that I use for my square and a square. So I'm going to cut 7-inch strips. In your kit, you'd be getting a ½ yard. Let us make our squaring cut. I'm lining up on the bottom here, putting the second ruler there, make my straight cut. We need to cut a 7-inch strip, so I am going to line up my half and add in my 6.5. So 6.5 plus a half is 7. For this particular size that we're making, the sample, we're only going to cut one strip. If we were going to be making a larger size, we would cut 2 strips. So for either the throw that we have behind me or the larger size, we would cut 2. And we would also have 3 different fabrics if we were going to be cutting for more pieces. We're going to square this edge up again, and we're going to cut some 7-inch squares. I am going to position the ruler at the half and then put my 6.5 here. I have it folded together, so 2, and I didn't cut quite all the way through in my rushing. So if you have occasional miscuts, just watch the speed of your cutting. If you are consistently having to go back, it's time to change your blade. Or sometimes your mat. Mats don't last forever either. We're going to line up that half, put this one on, and cut. Okay, so I am going to leave my pairs together, and then I'm going to cut in half. When I cut in half, I am going to align my 45-inch or 45-degree line here on the bottom, and we have a glare here, so let's see if I can show you a little better up here. Okay, so this 45-degree line, we're going to line up from point to point. Now, if you are a titch off, this is a flannel rag quilt, so there is some forgiveness that you wouldn't have in a traditional piecing. and we're going to repeat again. If you are making the larger sizes, you are going to follow the instructions for the amounts that you need. In this case, I'm making 2 sample blocks for you, so I've cut all I need. Next up, I am going to cut the green that is going to become our 2.5-inch strips. I want to make sure my strips are out of the way here so I don't chop off my triangles. We will do a squaring cut, so I will use my Big Mama ruler, the perpendicular, to get my edge here. Along the edge, I'm going to line up my Big Daddy, make my straight cut. Oh, I could hear that it didn't go all the way through. It's probably time for me to change my blade. So we will do that in between our next segment. Then we are going to cut 2 2.5-inch strips. I'm going to show you another fun cutting trick where we're actually going to cut a 5 first. So we're going to cut a 5, and then we're going to come back and cut 2.5. Ooh, fancy. So the reason why I like to do this sort of cutting is because it is thought that every 3 cuts this way you need to re-straighten. So if I take double cuts, I can go twice as far. Okay? So that is why we did it that way. I need to cut from this strip here. I'm going to cut 4 5-inch strips, 2.5 by 5, and I need to cut 4 2.5 by 9. And you would, of course, follow the instructions for however many you are cutting. All right, I'm going to cheat and just go like this to chop off that edge. So we're going to do the 5-inch twice. Okay, 5. 5. For my 2 blocks, I could go ahead and cut some of my 9 here. For my 9, I can either put my 2 together. So 6.5 plus 2.5 is 9, so we can do it that way. So we'll cut this one this way, and then I'll show you a second way that you can cut it in the next cut. All right, so this is this one here. And then for the next cut here, an alternate way for making that long cut, let us go ahead and make our straight cut. Position this here. Use a little ruler. I'm going to shift it over as far as we can. There we go. Now the other way to make a 9-inch cut would be to position our ruler this way. So here I have the rotary mate, and I'm going to line up my 9 here. I'll cut it this way. So now I have my strips for my 2 sets of blocks. Easy peasy. We only have one more piece of fabric that we're going to cut here, and that's our cute little dinosaurs. For our cute little dinosaurs, we are going to cut 13-inch squares and 5-inch squares. So I'll show you how we would cut these half-yard cuts here. Now, there is, it's 13 plus 5 is 18 inches. A half yard is 18 inches. Now, oftentimes, when you have things cut at Patchworks, or you have a kit, your 18 is really a little bit more generous than 18. Before you go ahead and cut, make sure you can get your 18. If you have a different type of cut that it truly is 18, because this is a rag quilt and because you have a little bit of forgiveness, go ahead and don't make that straight cut, only in the case of this being a flannel rag quilt. If this were any other instructions, I would make you buy 5/8 of a yard instead of a 1/2 of a yard. But since this is a rag quilt, we can go ahead and just use that 1/2. So because we have a ample cut on our 1/2 yard here, I am going to make a straight cut. And then we're going to cut our 13-inch first, because we always cut our big cuts first. Always, 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 always. Because you can cut down, you can never piece your fabric back together. I mean, you can piece your fabric back together. You just can't glue it back together. All right, so we need a 13-inch strip. So that is 6.5 plus 6.5. So that's a big mama plus a big daddy, or 2 big mamas and 2 big daddies. And then we need a 5-inch strip. So you can get a total of 8 5-inch squares from a strip. In this case, we only need 2. So we are going to make our straight cut. Yeah, you got it. And then we're going to cut our little 5-inch squares here for our little dinosaur centers. Yay, so cute. And then I am going to need 2 13-inch squares. You can get 3 13-inch squares per strip of fabric. We will open this up. Going to use our big mama to help us get our square. And then, how much to get our 13? Yes, it is the 2 rulers, the big mama and the big daddy. So, did you know that Patchworks makes the Big Daddy, Big Mama, Rotary Mate, Rotary Rule rulers? They were designed by Patchworks founder Trudy Hughes. And do you know that she was one of the early adopters of rotary cutting in quilting? So thank you, Trudy, for helping make quilting more accessible. Let's see what we have here. So we have our alternating squares, super cute. And then we're just going to look at this here. We have our square and a square guys here. Let's bring them down a little bit. Dun, dun, dun. Just looking at how this is all going to come together, and it is super, super cute. Let me bring this down a little bit so that you can see it better. Oh, that is adorable. All right, are you ready to make it? Yes, Julie, we're ready to make it. Yay! Okay, so in order to make this, we are going to put our walking foot on our machine. Now, oftentimes when we do Quilt as I Go, I do like to put a little bit of spray based on the batting. So basting on the batting. With these being really small quilt sandwiches, I think you can go ahead and get away without using it. If you prefer to use a little bit of spray based, you would apply it to the batting and then layer your fabric on top. Spray basting works best when you spray it on the batting and not on the fabric. Always use a light touch as well. So we are going to do our pieced blocks first. And if you've never done Quilt as You Go, it's a stitch by number. So we're going to start in the center and work our way out and just follow the numbers. I'm going to use on the back of our dinosaurs, I think we should have, oh, we're going to have these guys on the back. All right, it's going to be super fun. So we're going to have this, and I'm going to show you, let's clear off our workspace, and then I'll show you here what we got. Okay, so we got a, can't have Hurricane Julie happen to our little studio here. Okay. So we are going to position this on. Now our fabric's just a little bit bigger, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay, fabric's a little bit bigger here than our square. So we're going to do one. So how this works is that we position this within the lines. Oh, he's so cute. Look at, he just happened to be in the center. Hello, little dinosaur. Then we are going to position 2 and 3. So we are going to position 2 right here and 3 right here. Okay. Let's use a couple pins. Hold it all in place. And we are going to be bold and daring, and we're actually going to prepare the second one just so we can go to the machine and have it all set. And then I'll show you how I like to do my chain piecing for this, okay? So I go perpendicular to my seam, okay? And now let's layer up number 2. We're going to use our fun little jungle fabric again. Layer this guy on. Be careful to not stretch our pre-printed batting, because you want to make sure that you're able to use the printed guides. If we stretch this, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to follow the lines. And this guy, oh, here we go. Let's see him. Super cute. And then we will layer on number 2 and number 3. And I'm going to reach over for my pins. All right, just like that. Okay, let's go over to the sewing machine. So I have put the walking foot on, and I am going to stitch my 1/4 inch. Now with my walking foot, I want to find where my 1/4 inch would be. So if I didn't know where it would be, I could use my quick 1/4 ruler here and visualize where my 1/4 inch falls on my machine. So my 1/4 inch falls actually, and I don't know if you're able to see this, probably not. Let me pull you in a little tighter. So this is going to be a little shaky here. Oops, an epic fail. Here we go. Okay, so you can see that it is on the edge of where the gap is for my walking foot, okay? So check your machine to see where, sorry for making you seasick there. And you can see there that where your 1/4 inch is, and that's what you're going to want to find. So I am going to stitch using my 1/4 inch on my walking foot, so it's right there. Don't want to stitch over our pins again, right? Because we want to make sure that we treat our machine kindly so that it can take care of us. And when we're stitching, I just stitch to the edge of my fabric. I don't go farther. I don't use a tack stitch. I just stitched from the front to the end. Now, I said we could chain stitch this. So what we're going to do, and you can see here, I went to 3 first. When we're working on opposite ends, you can go 3 and 2 or 2 and 3. Whatever suits your fancy. And I'm going to get that next piece to show you what we were doing if we would just be chaining it, okay? So I can bring my needle up. I can pull that forward. If you have a fancy auto cut on your machine, you absolutely can do that if you prefer. But oftentimes I prefer to set all of these up so that we can just go to town and stitch, okay? I like to be as efficient as possible when I'm putting things together because I love creating all sorts of things, and time is often not on my side. I can just swing this around. If you prefer, you wouldn't have to cut it before you swing it around. Make sure to take that pin out. That was a little daring and unafraid. Okay, so now let's go over to our board over here, and let's trim off our extra pieces. Oops. Let's trim off our thread. And you can be fussy and trim along the way, or if you prefer, you can trim just at the end. Your choice. Okay, so you can see here that we are starting to form our block. We'll finger press this open. The nice thing about that flannel is that it just sticks to the batting, which is really nice. All right, and then I'll just line up 4 and 5 on each of my blocks. So, were you part of the rag quilt craze back in the 90s? Did you use plaids? What are your stories? Do you have pictures of them? I had made, Frank, several years ago, a nature rag quilt with a panel, and that was really cool. And he actually has that as one of his couch quilts now. It's nice and fuzzy. Okay, so you can see here that as we fold this forward, it doesn't quite go to the edge. That is okay with what we're doing here because this is, I must have stretched this a little bit before I put it on because my green comes all the way to the end. The lines are simply a guide for us. And a very helpful guide. But don't worry about making up any loss or any variance. Okay, over to the sewing machine. this walking foot is really nice. I use a walking foot not just for quilting, but for doing the quilt as you go items. I also use the walking foot when I'm putting on my binding. That makes life a heck of a lot easier. Side number 2. Or actually I'm doing 4 and 5 here. If you had one of those fancy machines that had the dual feed on it, that would work just fine as well. The purpose of the walking feet is that you have the feed dogs on top as well as the bottom. So it helps move bulk like this through your machine a little bit easier and not get a bunching up in the back. So anything that can make our life easier is very much appreciated. If you use your walking feet a lot, it's a machine like anything else. So with a different machine, I was just using my walking feet like crazy when I was doing all the bindings for customer quilts. So Frank went through, and he's a very good fix-it guy, and he actually repaired my walking foot, which was amazing. Most times it would simply require purchase of a new one, but at that point he thought, you know what, let's just take it apart, and worst case is we buy a new one. And he was able to take it apart and make it work. So if your feed dogs are dragging and aren't making the work easier, it might be a time to look at replacing that walking foot. Now, I'm talking about having many, many, many hours on that walking foot. So, you know, if you're just casually using it, don't worry about that. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Ha! Look at my little, look at them. They're so cute. They are so, so cute. All right. So now we're ready for our triangles on the end here, okay? So we are going to go 6, 7. You can't pin all 4 at the same time. You have to go 6, 7, and then 8, 9. So we are going to position this. Do you see here how it goes off the edge? Okay. Can we see that? Okay. Going to pin in the center, and then side, side. And you can do it for both sides of as many blocks as you have. So if I were making the larger quilt, I would be going ahead and using all 18, okay, and doing all 18 at a time. If you get bored and you need things switched up, I do give you permission to not do all of them in a row. But if you are looking for the pro tips of how does the quilty staff make all the quilts that they do, it's because we take advantage of power steps like chain piecing, like assembly line sewing. Okay? And if you say, oh, that sounds too much like work, you know, sometimes there's actually joy in the production part of it, like, oh, I can't believe I got it done in this much time. So like little crazy contests. It's a little game. So as we're putting this on, so 6 and 7 help lock this. So we want to, as we're doing the quilt as you go, just like with regular piecing, we're locking our seams. right? So you want to always lock your seams before you put that next piece on. That's how we're going around the block. Do the center. And the side. And the side. Now the whole point of this rag is that we're going to be off the edge of the batting, so that is okay, all right? If we were doing a traditional thing, of course we wouldn't be off the edge, but that's the nature of what it is that we are doing. Back to the machine. Whew, I'm getting a workout here. So as we are working on things, and I'm just going to pick up my pins here, make sure that I don't lose my pins everywhere. So I actually, but while I have, so sometimes it's easy to set things up so that you have a sitting cutting board and a sitting pressing station. I want to encourage you as you're working on, especially marathon sewing sessions, that you make a purpose of getting up along the way. You know, it's so easy to just stay seated for a prolonged period of time, but then your back and your neck and your hips and your legs and your knees all are screaming. And so I want to make sure that for myself when I'm sewing, I purposely actually leave my stations so that I have to get up in between them. So it helps moving around. And that is actually another reason why I like to do my chain piecing, is so that I get to take full advantage of each time and each movement between my stations, so that I'm not, you know, like running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Although sometimes that still happens. So, you know. Going together really nice. So have you ever used your walking foot to get a 1/4 inch seam? Is this a surprise? Is this a new trick for you? So there's too much bounce in it for a regular so I mean, I don't use my walking foot for just traditional piecing. I would only do it when I'm going through bulk like this. Sometimes I find that if I'm just doing it on a regular thicknesses of fabric, that it makes too much noise for me. But I also find that oftentimes there's just a little slip. It's not a technical term there, but I don't have the effect that I like. Or it's at least my perceived effect. Okay. Back to our cutting table here. So we can see here on the back side, you can see some quilting stitches through our characters here, and I'm just trimming away my extra threads. We have 2 more triangles to put on each side. Just taking off a few of these so we don't get caught up. I often have a little bit more size appropriate thread snips next to my sewing table. Okay. Looks good, looks good. It's always good to kind of check and make sure that everything's all good. All right, and then we're going to put on our next edge here. All right. There we go. And on this side here, one more pin. I really like this color combination. And these are from a variety of manufacturers here. We like to carry quite a bit of novelty flannel that you can use for making a quick little cuddle quilt. You can use it for making pajamas. You can layer a single layer of cuddle with flannel for a fun little lovey thing. You can do 2 layers of flannel for fun little burp cloths. That's really popular. Let's go back to the sewing table. And then this this blue, light blue green that we have in the corner here, that's a new Northcott that we have. We have some print fabric, some flat cotton that is of the same texture, and it's just really nice. It's a newer product line, and I had tried out a few colors while we saw what the texture was like, and I really like it, and I hope you do too. All right. Now, since we went to the edge here, we can go ahead and do traditional chain piecing. Okay, come in here, take off that pin, and we're just going along. 2.5 more seams before we finish our block. All right, now, when I'm piecing like this, I want to show you a little trick. So I leave that. I'm going to snip off behind so that I can come back and leave that in there. Do you see that? So that's a sneaky little trick too for true chain piecing. So you just take that back piece from behind the piece that's in the machine, and then you just keep going. Oh my goodness, you're just learning all these fun tricks. You are just going to be a wizard behind the sewing machine. Okay, let's do it again. So we snipped behind, and now we have this guy, and we have our last seam. All right. Yay! Dun 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 dun. Okay. There it is. There it is. Let's see. What do they look like? Dun 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 dun. Woo-hoo-hoo! Woo-hoo-hoo! Yay! Yay! All right, they're so cute. They're so cute. Oh, I positioned that one a little crazy, but that's all right because this is a fun rag quilt and I'll show you how that all goes together. Okay, now we have our alternating square, and our alternating square we are going to have green, a piece of batting, take those dark threads off so that they don't appear in between, and then our fun little alternating piece. Okay, so I'm going to have this layered up really nice. It's not an exact science because we're going to be cutting it up and chopping it down. I'm going to put a couple pins in here just to help stabilize it. If you were going to be using basting spray, then you could get away without doing any pinning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this so that I can stitch through some fun lines. So I'm going to do a snowflake. Okay, so it's going to be a plus and an X. Okay, so I'm going to see it. Actually, I should have done this on the green side so that we can see it a little better. Okay, we'll do that. So we still have it sandwiched. I'm going to put my pins back in. Okay, so now this is not, you know, rocket science here. It's 13 inches, so we're going to have 6.5. I can mark 6.5 and 6.5. Okay, just so I can see where it is. I'm going to mark my X here. I'm using my Clover water erasable marker here. Ever so faint line. Then I'm going to do an X from point to point here. Okay. I am going to do my this way. So I'm hitting this and then the intersection of my X. And we will do it this way as well. I'm going to use my line here so I can do that. Perfect. Now, if it's not perfect, that's all right too. We're going to do that to both of our alternate blocks. So let's layer that up. Dinosaurs, batting, and extra piece. So why am I doing all the stitching? Well, we're doing all the stitching because we want, as it washes, we don't want this other part to fall apart, right? We probably could just mark our X as well. I bet you that would work. Less extra measurements, and we're all for that. Okay, point to point. Point to point. And then we're going to do our plus. And the other side here. If you prefer to do something more decorative, by all means, go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go to our sewing machine, and we will sew along the way. Okay. I'm going to lengthen my stitch length here just a titch. So I started at a 2.5. I'm going to go to a 5. I'm sorry, not a 5, 3. 3, 3, 3, 3. I went from a 2.5 to a 3. All right. I'm following along here. If I miss it a little bit, no big deal. And this will get washed out when we do our ragging, okay? Okay, let's go to our next piece here. So we're even chain piecing our alternate squares. Oh, I did such a good job with this marker that is blue-green that blends into our light green here. So at home, you probably can't see it. I promise I am stitching on the line. All right. What are we going to do? We are going to clip off that one on the end. And let's go for the other up-down, okay? The other part of our plus. If you wanted to use a serpentine, you totally could. If you wanted to use a decorative thread, that could be fun. If you wanted to do some sort of fun other design, just make sure that you are securing all of the layers to the ends, okay? Because we want to make sure after we wash it that that batting's not going to lump all up on us, especially with how we're doing this rag quilting, okay? And you see there's a little bit of a shift. I was being a little quick here, and that's okay, as long as we don't have any lumps in our front side here. So I'm going to stop and check. We're going to go to our cutting table here and see. Oh yeah, and I think that that just came because I didn't get out all of the, I didn't press out all of my little wrinkles here, which is fine for the project that we're doing. So now we're going to just make sure that we do our X. Back to the sewing machine. Dun 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 dun. Okay. So you're going to have to let me know how you like some of these demos where we're actually doing some sewing with it rather than just sharing technique with you. I know sometimes we like the quick, just tell me how it is so I can get going, and then there's other times that you really like to see different parts of it. So I'm hoping that this little bit here is helping you improve your technique or keeping you company in your sewing room or giving you a little inspiration. Or maybe it's just soothing hearing the rhythmic sound of the sewing machine sewing. Click, 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 click. There's a segment, if you ever have watched NASCAR, where they're like, turn it up, and you where you listen to just like the cars going around around the track. I almost feel like that should be a segment here on our little demos, like, turn it up, listen to the machine go. You can see I'm just letting that machine do the work. I wasn't pushing anything through. Okay. Let's look at the cutting table. Okay, so we have these guys here. And so we are going to assemble 4-patch like this and this. Okay, so I know we're zoomed in a little bit, but you can imagine here how we're going to do this. So what we're going to do is that we are going to open. We want to make sure our guys are this way. I just put it on top of a whole pile of thread. That's no good. So I'm just going to layer these guys up like this. I'm going to put in a couple pins. So we're going to layer up the back side. And for this, we're actually going to take a 1/2-inch seam for our piecing here, okay? We're going to take a 1/2-inch in. So that means we're going to change where we are positioning on our walking foot, right? Line up these edges. Still pin to make sure all of the layers are together. Okay. And let's go back to the machine. So for my 1/2-inch, I'm going to go out to the, you can see on my plate, it is right here. You can't see that. So it's right to the edge. So we're going to go, that's how we're going to line it up for this. Okay. And so what happens, and then we're also going to, in this case, do a little back tack, okay? Because we want to make sure that this outside edge does not come out. If you had wanted to, you could actually switch to 40 weight thread. I happen to have 50 weight thread in, but 40 weight thread is a little bit stronger. And just keep it together, okay? Back, forward, okay. And then we're going to repeat with the second row. All right, we're just going to keep sewing along, and then we'll come back and do the other direction. Okay, so in this case here, I got a little bit off, and one of the things